Happy New Year. It's 2026, and this is a season of reinvention for everyone that watches this channel. If you're into business strategy, AI, technology, that's why you've subscribed. And today I have a montage of videos of three of my favorite entrepreneurs of all time. Jeff Bezos, who I modeled for 2 decades. I used to work at barnesandnoble.com back in the stone ages of e-commerce. We were battling Amazon at that time. I was a very, very young programmer. Jensen Huang, who has painted the underpinnings of AI right now. And then Sam Altman, who really brought AI into mainstream prominence right now. I've been involved in AI for over a decade doing various different AI things, but they made it mainstream. These videos are really just a bunch of stories about perseverance, their grassroots, but how they pushed through and what they did to invent to push forward. Right now, the playing field is even. A lot of people will look at AI in through a lot of different lenses. I will choose to look at it as opportunity for the individual today. So if you're ambitious and you are a business leader, you can use it inside of your business to make radical changes. If you're an individual, there has never been a greater time to start a company. What a single individual can do now, from sales, marketing, to product, to finance, to everything else, competitive research, is unbelievable. I spent my holiday vacation with my family, first and foremost, but then in addition to that, I built an agent orchestration system for my consulting practice, Proactive Logic Consulting, and some of my products to parallelize work and review. So as we move to this new paradigm where you assign AI's work and then review that work and then can parallelize that across all of your functions, is an incredible opportunity for entrepreneurs. But the point of this is I actually took that system that I built, I shredded a bunch of videos, I pieced them together to put together really sort of a hype video for myself, but I'm gonna put this up on the channel for anybody else that wants to invent and write the playbook in 2026. The playbook, the pages are empty. You are the one to fill them out. Here's to your success, and here's to a great 2026.
The part of it that is important to realize about building companies is that it's a challenging and painful and oftentimes extraordinarily scary thing to do. And so unless you have passion, unless you really love the process of building the company and what you're trying to do, it's going to be incredibly, incredibly challenging.
I guess to use the example of SpaceX. Mm-hmm. When you made the go decision that you were actually going to do that, this was kind of a very crazy thing at the time.
Very crazy,
very
for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah, people are not shy about saying that. But I kind of agree. I agreed with them that it was quite crazy. Crazy if the objective was to achieve the best risk-adjusted return, starting a company is insane. But that was not my objective. I'd simply come to the conclusion that if something didn't happen to improve rocket technology, we would be stuck on Earth forever. Like SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%, and I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress if we could just move the ball forward. Even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that would still do some good.
And this puts me back to a time when we were building this company and all of the attention and all of the activity and all of the focus on the stock market, which was so distracting, although profitable, is a good thing.
I absolutely think that's true. And in fact, these stocks, internet stocks, Amazon.com definitely included, are incredibly volatile. And it's good to have that reminder so that people know when they join an internet company or when they invest in an internet company, it's good to be cognizant of that risk and know what you're doing. Back in 1995, nobody wanted to hear from Amazon.com, and the kinds of people that we attracted were people who just wanted to be on the mission that we wanted to be on. They were there. Stages, and one of the reasons it's hard is because at that stage there's nobody counting on you but yourself. One of the things that is very motivating, today it's easy because we've got millions of customers counting on us, and thousands of investors counting on us, and then thousands of employees all counting on each other. But in that beginning stage, It's really just you. And you can quit any time.
Nvidia today is the only surviving computer graphics company in the world. And so the question is then, what happened? Competition is intense. Everybody has smart people. Everybody has money. We competed with IBM. We competed with HP. We competed with Silicon Graphics. We competed with Sony, 3DFX, S3, Cirrus Logic, big, small, international, local. We competed with companies all over the world. So the question is, what happened? I would argue that 300 companies armed with exactly the same technology, armed with exactly the same people, the company that wins, and let's say they all execute, and they did. With 300 companies, 50% of them are going to execute at any given point in time. And so the question is, why does one survive? Well, I think that it matters to have perspective, and let me give you some examples.
I remember a meeting at on a weekend, and the conversation was, we now have 89 competitors. I understand that the way we do it is not right, but we don't know how to do it the right way. And thankfully, there was another bookstore, and the bookstore is called Fry's Electronics. I don't know if it's still here. And so I think I drove Madison, my daughter, on a weekend to Fry's, and it was sitting right there. The OpenGL manual, which would define how Silicon Graphics did computer graphics. And so it was right there. It was like $68 a book. And so I had a couple $100. I bought 3 books. I took it back to the office and I said, guys, I found it, Our Future. And I handed out, I had 3 versions of it, I handed out. Had a big, nice centerfold. The centerfold is the OpenGL pipeline, which is the computer graphics pipeline. And I handed it to the same geniuses that I founded the company with. And we implemented the OpenGL pipeline like nobody had ever implemented the OpenGL pipeline. My reaction during that time is the same reaction I had about this week. Earlier today, you asked me about this week. My pulse was exactly the same. This week is no different than last week or the week before that. And so the opposite of that, when you drop 80%, don't get me wrong. When your share price drops 80%, it's a little embarrassing, okay? And you just want to wear a T-shirt that says "wasn't my fault." But even more than that, you just don't want to get out of your bed. You don't want to leave the house. All of that is true. All of that is true. But then you go back to just doing your job. I woke up at the same time. Prioritize my day in the same way. I go back to what do I believe? You got to gut check, always gut check back to the core. What do you believe? What are the most important things? And just check them off. Sometimes it's helpful to, family loves me. Okay, check. Double check. Right? And so you just got to check it off, and you go back to your core, and then go back to work. And then every conversation go back to the core. Keep the company focused back on.
The viral spike in automotive video creations we experienced this week would have been disastrous without AWS. And you do face this issue whenever you have a startup company. You want to be prepared for lightning to strike, but you don't want, because if you're not, that generates a big regret. If lightning strikes and you weren't ready for it, that's kind of hard to live with. It's completely impractical in your own data center over the course of 3 days to scale from 50 servers to 3,500 servers. Don't try this at home. And by the way, if the other alternative might be to raise enough capital to deploy 3,500 servers, that's sort of equally insane. Because it's just way too big of a gamble. So and I told them that I thought there was a 70% chance that they would lose their whole investment, which was a few $100,000, and they did it anyway. And I thought I was giving myself triple the normal odds, because there's really, if you look at the odds of a startup company succeeding at all, it's only about 10%. Here I was giving myself a 30% chance.
Startup companies need early planetary alignment because there are so many things that can go wrong.
I think that it's good to be paranoid and act quickly when a potential competitive threat emerges. This happened to us in the past. That happened earlier this year with DeepSeek. And
there was a code red back then too.
Yeah. There's a saying about pandemics, which is something like when a pandemic starts, every bit of action you take at the beginning is worth much more than action you take later. And most people don't do enough early on and then panic later. And I kind of thought that, I guess I didn't think about that hard, but like my retro on this is I must have assumed that the overhang was not going to be that massive, that if the models had a lot of value in them, the world was pretty quickly going to figure out how to deploy that. But it looks to me now like the overhang is going to be massive in most of the world. You'll have these like areas like, some set of coders that'll get massively more productive by adopting these tools. But on the whole, you have this crazy smart model that, to be perfectly honest, most people are still asking this similar questions they did in the GPT-4 realm. Scientists different, coders different, maybe knowledge work is going to get different, but there's a huge overhang, and that has a bunch of very strange consequences for the world. We have not wrapped our head around all the ways that's going to play out yet, but is very much not what I would have expected a few years ago. Short term, I have some worry. I think the transition is likely to be rough in some cases, but we are so deeply wired to care about other people, what other people do. We seem to be so focused on relative status and always wanting more and to be of use and service, to express creative spirit, whatever has driven us this long. I don't think that's going away. Now, I do think that jobs of the future, or I don't even know if jobs is the right word, whatever we're all going to do all day in 2050, probably looks very different than it does today. But I don't have any of this like, oh, life is going to be without meaning and the economy is going to totally break. Like, we will find, I hope, much more meaning. And the economy, I think, will significantly change.
I worry about this a lot. I think people have worried about this with every big technological revolution.
Got it.
But I agree that this time it feels different. Like,
okay, yeah, because if, say you had an axe and some guy came out with a saw, you're like,
fine.
You're like, yeah, that's,
or even if they come out with like a robot that cuts the tree down, it still feels fine. But like, creativity, intelligence, I think, cuts so deeply at the core of whatever we are and how we value ourselves. One example we can look at this right now, I think one area where AI is having a big impact is on how people write software for a living. And AI is really good at that. It's really changed what it means to be a software developer. I haven't heard any of those software developers say that they, even though their job is different, that they don't have meaning. They still enjoy it. They're operating at a higher level. And I'm hopeful, at least for a long time, 100 years from now, who knows?
And I took it because I was just particularly anxious that day about the state of the world, particularly anxious about Ukraine and Russia and China and the political system that we have in this country and this incredibly polarizing way that the left and the right engage with each other. And yeah, I think that our concern with losing this aspect of what it means to be a person, this, like the idea that we should always have conflict and struggle because conflict and struggle is how we facilitate progress, which is true, right? And combating evil is how the good gets greater and stronger if the good wins. But my concern is that that is all predicated on the idea that the biological system that we have right now is correct and optimal. And I think one of the things that we're dealing with the heightened states of depression and anxiety and the lack of meaning and existential angst that people experience, a lot of that is because the biological reality of being a human animal doesn't really integrate that well with this world that we've created.
So if you take our electronics store, we don't want to have physical electronics stores because I think that's a bad experience, and I don't know how to improve it. So why would we want to own that?
And if those people who are in competing business with you, those bookstores and those people selling all these products, if they come to you and say, so what's our future, what do you say to them? If they say, give us some free advice, Jeff. You're coming down the road, and we know how fast you're going.
So
and we
the
know
physical
what you're doing.
stores? Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is we're talking about 15%, not 100%.
Yeah.
So I think even over 10 plus years. The second thing I would say is figure out what your strengths are and emphasize those. One of the things I do think you see is companies that are great in the physical world spending too much time, energy, and attention online. And I think, they should have a certain amount of skepticism when I say this, because of course I'd like them not to do that.
Yeah.
But I really do believe it's the truth, right? I really do believe that they could, that if you have, let's say you have two big competitors in the physical world, and one of them decides to go whole hog for the internet, and the other one says, what we're going to do is we're going to just try to get a bigger piece of that 85% and really focus on our physical world business while our competitor is distracted.
I think that we need to be careful not to fall behind in the application and the diffusion of AI, because in the end, whoever applies the technology first and most wins that industrial revolution.
If you just get devoured by now, you'll lose the optimism for tomorrow. And I do feel that if you do look at long term, and if you think on decades rather than months, yes, what matters today is important for 10 years.
Yes.
And if you have that idea that 10 years things will be better and that we will have made progress, it helps today and it does relieve a lot of angst.
Well, so first of all, I believe that as hard as we have worked at Amazon.com, and I'm talking about all 7,000 of us, we have also been incredibly lucky. So I believe that
because of timing, or because
timing is the main thing. There are lots of things that we even decisions we made that were the wrong decision that somehow miraculously worked out anyway.
Yeah.
So I believe that all startup companies require huge amounts of luck. So certainly if you don't work hard and if you don't have a good plan, no amount of luck will save you. And that's how small companies get a little bit bigger and then a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger until finally, at a certain stage, you reach a transition where where the company has more control over its future destiny. And when a company is very tiny, it needs a tremendous amount of not only hard work, but as we talked about earlier, luck. As a company gets bigger, it starts to become a little more stable, where if at a certain point in time, the company has a much bigger influence over its future outcome. It needs a lot less luck, and instead it needs the hard work. And at that point, there's a little bit more pressure, because then if you fail, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
I believe it's incredibly important that we humans go out into space, and the primary reason, if you think long-term about this, is we need to do that to preserve the Earth. So I'm not one of the Plan B guys. There's a kind of conventional wisdom that's quite common, that one of the reasons we need to go into space and settle another planet is as a kind of backup for humanity. If Earth gets destroyed, at least we have this other place. And I don't like that. That's not motivating for me. Because I'll tell you what we know for sure. We have now sent robotic probes to every planet in this solar system. This is a childhood dream. I fell in love with the idea of space and space exploration and space travel when I was 5 years old, and I watched Neil Armstrong step onto the moon. And you don't choose your passions choose you. So I'm infected with this idea. It's, I couldn't ever stop thinking about space. And since I was 5 years old, I've been obsessive about space travel and wanting to be an astronaut and to go into space. And I have started a company called Blue Origin that is building a vertical takeoff, vertical landing rocket. It's a suborbital rocket. So you'll get up into space and then come back down. The rocket is reusable, and it re-enters and lands on its tail like a Buck Rogers rocket under rocket power. So that is, and we've finished our first development vehicle, and we flew that, and we're working on our second development vehicle now, and there'll be at least one more development vehicle after that, and then hopefully at some point we'll enter commercial operations. So it is pretty exciting. I can tell you also, just to kind of tie the two subjects together, Blue Origin is a consumer of Amazon Web Services, and I'm not making this up. And they do aerodynamic simulations. They do computational fluid dynamic calculations on the EC2 cloud. They used to have a Beowulf cluster. It was a 16-node Beowulf cluster that they would do CFD calculations on. And but it's not their bit. It's kind of like the brewery and the electricity. Whether they are really great at managing huge Beowulf clusters is not going to make the rocket perform any better. For sure. We started, you have to remember, 20 years ago, we were selling only books. I was driving all the packages to the post office myself. I thought maybe one day we would be able to afford a forklift. And it's very, very different today.
And the framework I found, which made the decision incredibly easy, was what I called, which only a nerd would call, a regret minimization framework. So I wanted to project myself forward to age 80 and say, okay, now I'm looking back on my life. I want to have minimized the number of regrets I have. And I knew that when I was 80, I was not going to regret having tried this. I was not going to regret having trying to participate in this thing called the internet that I thought was going to be a really big deal. I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not ever having tried. And I knew that that would haunt me every day. And so when I thought about it that way, it was an incredibly easy decision. And I think that's a very good, it's if you can project yourself out to age 80 and sort of think, what will I think at that time? It gets you away from some of the daily pieces of confusion. And I think one of the best ways to do that is this notion of projecting yourself forward to age 80, looking back on your life and trying to make sure you've minimized the number of regrets you have. That works for career decisions. It works for family decisions. Do you want? I have a 14-month-old son, and it's very easy for me to, if I think about myself when I'm 80, I know I want to watch that little guy grow up. And so I don't want to be 80 and think, shoot, I missed that whole thing, and I don't have the kind of relationship with my son that I wished I had, and so on and so on.
Well, first of all, I get all weak-kneed around entrepreneurs. I just love entrepreneurs, and I always have. I like missionary entrepreneurs, people who are, they're doing it because there's something about the mission that they just can't not do it. They're so passionate about it. And I'm guessing that this room is full of such people. And I think you should be very optimistic. In fact, entrepreneurs need to be optimistic almost to the point of delusion. And I'll tell you, my view on this is that it is possible to, be 18, 19, 20 years old, drop out of college, and be a great entrepreneur. And the world we have famous examples of that working, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. But these people are the exception. I always advise to young people, go work at a best practices company somewhere where you can learn a lot of basic fundamental things. How to hire really well, how to interview, etc. There's a lot of stuff you would learn in a great company that will help you. And then there's still lots of time to start a company after you have absorbed. It increases your odds, in my opinion. I started Amazon when I was 30, not when I was 20. And I think that extra 10 years of experience actually improved the odds that Amazon would succeed. And he said to me, I had no idea what he was going to say, and he said to me, Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than it is to be clever.
And I hope this is, hope a lot of you out there, that this way of thinking about things will be instructive to your startup efforts. It's very exciting. In fact, when we see something like Animoto, it's very inspiring for us because it is a big part of why we built these services to make just this sort of thing possible.
Napster. I think Napster is very profound. The thing that I think is amazing about it is it's an indication of how a single person can influence the world when the world is as networked as it is now becoming.
A single person who's 19 years old.
That's right. So this is a 19-year-old with no team, acting as an individual in his college dorm room, who
with
builds
one
a
friend
piece
who's
of
20 years old.
who builds a piece of software and releases it to the world. And just a short number of months later, every record label is suing him. 5 years ago, you could not possibly, no matter how hard you tried as an individual, have gotten every major record label to sue you. There's
nothing you could have done.
No, you couldn't have done it. They would have ignored you.
They would have said, you're irrelevant,
they wouldn't have given you the pleasure.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is truly a remarkable indication of the ability of a single person in this networked world, a single person with a powerful idea to change the world.
I think what people want is like agency, self-determination, the ability to play a role in architecting the future along with the rest of society, the ability to express themselves and create something meaningful to them.
What are your core values, Sam, that can give us, the world, confidence that someone with so much power here is entitled to it?
Look, I think like anyone else, I'm a nuanced character that doesn't reduce well to one dimension here. So, probably some of the good things are true and probably some of the criticism is true. In terms of OpenAI, our goal is to make AGI and distribute it, make it safe for the broad benefit of humanity. I think by all accounts, we have done a lot in that direction. And I just decided that I was going to learn to love the hard parts. I was like, you know what? If I'm in this crazy moment, if I'm in this crazy thing, if I feel my emotions are high, I'm going to make myself learn to be grateful for that, to love it, to find enjoyment in the tension, in the competition, whatever. And actually it worked. And it kind of needed to work because so many things go wrong in any given day. But I was thinking about, someday I'll be retired on my ranch. I'll be sitting there watching the plants grow and I'll be missing the excitement and the drama and the anger and the tension and the whatever. And so I'm going to be grateful for it and learn to have fun with it. And now I cannot believe that mindset shift worked, but it did.
If it wasn't because of following my own instincts or the founder's instincts or many of our employees' instincts, why would we be where we are today? And why would we have invented things that the market's never had before, the world's never had before? So you have to have this culture or tolerance for risk-taking. But the thing about failure is this. If you fail often enough, you actually might become a failure. And that's different than being successful. And so the question is, how do you teach someone how to fail, but fail quickly? And to change courses as soon as you know it's a dead end. Every successful thing needs to be torn down at some point and be rebuilt. It is unfortunate but true. And the reason for that is because the technology either gets good enough, and therefore you have to reinvent, and sometimes the invention process is disruptive. Sometimes it's in fact destructive, and you could destroy what you had built in the past. And so the reinvention process is very challenging, it's gut-wrenching, takes a lot of courage, and it really tests your conviction. In the technology industry, reinventing the company every 10 years is almost a necessary thing.
It's not a word, but have a core belief, gut check it every day, pursue it with all your might, pursue it for a very long time, surround yourself with people you love, and take them on that ride. So. That's the story of Nvidia. You should start the company and build a company because you so believe in your idea, you're so passionate about it, and you want to build something great. The only reason you want to do it. It just comes along. It's fun. I have plenty of money, but it doesn't motivate me, nor does it demotivate me, because it wasn't. And so, I would urge you to ask yourself, and for your friends to ask themselves, what is the purpose that they want to start a company? Ideas are a dime a dozen. There's so many ideas. If you want ideas, you're going to get a lot of ideas in this room. And so ideas don't really matter. You have to have a perspective that's unique, that you feel really strongly about it, and that you're willing to persevere almost any challenge to make it happen. That's the reason why you should start the company. Okay. And it's kind of my attitude about everything now. You know, when somebody tells me about something and I've never heard of it before, or if I've heard of it, don't understand how it works at all, my first thought is always, how hard can it be? And it's probably just a textbook away. You're probably one archive paper away from figuring this out. And so I spend a lot of time reading archive papers, and it's true. It's true. You can now, of course, you can't learn how somebody else does something and do it exactly the same way and hope to have a different outcome. But you could learn how something can be done and then go back to first principles and ask yourself, given the conditions today, given my motivation, given the instruments, the tools, given how things have changed, how would I redo this? How would I reinvent this whole thing? How would I design it? How would I build a car today? Would I build it incrementally from 1950s and 1900s? How would I build a computer today? How would I write software today? Does it make sense? And so I go back to first principles all the time, even in the company today, and just reset ourselves. Because the world has changed. And the way we wrote software in the past was monolithic, and it's designed for supercomputers, but now it's disaggregated, so on and so forth. And
I think over the next few years, you're going to have some of the biggest opportunities, the biggest moral challenges, the biggest decisions to make of perhaps any human in history, pretty much. You should know that everyone here will be cheering you on to do the right thing.
We will do our best.
What kind of world do you believe, all things considered, your son will grow up into?
I remember, it's so long ago now. I don't know when the first iPad came out. It's like 15 years, something like that. I remember watching a YouTube video at the time of like a little toddler sitting in, a doctor's office waiting room or something. And there was a magazine, like one of those old, glossy cover magazines. And the toddler had his hand on it and was going like this and kind of angry. And to that toddler, it was like a broken iPad. And she never thought of a world that didn't have, touchscreens in them. And to all the adults watching this, it was this amazing thing because it was like, it's so new, it's so amazing, it's a miracle. Like, of course, magazines are the way the world works. My kids, hopefully, will never be smarter than AI. They will never grow up in a world where products and services are not incredibly smart, incredibly capable. They will never grow up in a world where computers don't just kind of understand you and do, for some definition of whatever you can imagine. It'll be a world of incredible material abundance. It'll be a world where the rate of change is incredibly fast and amazing new things are happening. And it'll be a world where individual ability, impact, whatever, is just so far beyond what a person can do today. I hope that my kids and all of your kids will look back at us with some pity and nostalgia and be like, they lived such horrible lives. Having a kid changed a lot of things. And by far the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me. Everything everybody says is true. The thing my co-founder Ilya said once is, I don't know, this is a paraphrase, something like, I don't know what the meaning of life is, but for sure it has something to do with babies. And it's like unbelievably accurate. It changed how much I'm willing to like spend time on certain things, and like the kind of cost of not being with my kid is just like crazily high. And but you know, I really cared about like not destroying the world before. I really care about it now. I didn't need a kid for that part. I mean, I definitely think more about like what the future will be like for him in particular, but I feel like a responsibility to do the best thing I can for the future for everybody.
I think we have no conception, because the human limit, like even if you have the world's best personal assistant, they can't remember every word you've ever said in your life. They can't have read every email. They can't have read every document you've ever written. They can't be, you know, looking at all your work every day and remembering every little detail. They can't be a participant in your life to that degree, and no human has like infinite perfect memory. And AI is definitely gonna be able to do that. And we actually talk a lot about this. Like right now, memory is still very crude, very early. We're in like the GPT-2 era of memory. But what it's going to be like when it really does remember every detail of your entire life and is personalized across all of that, and not just the facts, but like the little small preferences that you had that you maybe like didn't even think to indicate, but the AI can pick up on. I think that's going to be super powerful. Just strive. I want us to continue to push back the frontier and go out and explore. And I actually think something's already gotten a little off track in society about all of that. And I don't know. I think like I thought I'd be older by the time I felt like the old guy complaining about the youth. But I think we've lost something. And I think that we need more striving, maybe more risk taking, more like explorer spirit.
So I think should always bear in mind that entropy is not on your side. Yeah.
One thing I really like about you is you are unusually fearless and willing to go in the face of other people telling you something is crazy. And I know a lot of pretty crazy people, you still stand out. Where does that come from, or how do you think about making a decision when everyone tells you this is a crazy idea? Or where do you get the internal strength to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things,
like people shouldn't think people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like there'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. 1,000%. The best of days are ahead of us. You know, I don't have to work. I think I've done, you know.
I think that's true.
and Ambassador Rudd, you know, when he first met me, all my hair was black, and now, you know, if you were to take an image of my brain, it could turn out to be the same color as yours, and so, but nonetheless, this is the one decade I will not miss.
Yeah.
I simply won't miss this decade. I don't want to miss this next 2 decades. We are going to do more for the advancement of science. We're going to do more for the advancement of industry. We are going to do more for this nation in the next 2 decades than potentially all of it combined in the past.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to miss that. My parents had the American dream. My father always wanted us to grow up in the United States. He sent us here when I was 9. And they had almost nothing to start a life here. And somehow through that journey,
it worked out pretty good.
I'm here with the privilege of leading one of the most consequential companies in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
And And you just can't write a better story than that.
This is the American dream. I'm the first generation of the American dream.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard not to love this country. It's hard not to be romantic about this country.
That is a romantic story. That's an amazing story. I think that's important for a lot of people to hear because, there's probably some young people out there that are in a similar position to where you were when you were starting out that just feel like, oh, those people that have made it, they're just smarter than me and they had more opportunities than me. And it's just like it was handed to them or they're just in the right place at the right time. And
Joe, I just described to you somebody who didn't know what was going on, actually did it wrong.
Yes.
And the suffering is part of the journey.
You will appreciate it so much. These horrible feelings that you have when things are not going so well, you will appreciate it so much more when they do go well.
Deeply grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deep pride. Incredible pride. Incredible gratefulness and surely incredible memories. I've felt that probably a couple of times in my life. It's during that time.
Wow.
Yeah. It was incredible.
What an incredible success story!
But I learned a lot. I learned several things. I learned how to develop strategies. I learned how to, and when I'm, our company learned how to develop strategies. But it would make the world to me if he did. He went off and thought about it for a couple of days and came back and said, "We'll do it."
Wow. Did you have a strategy to how to correct what it was doing wrong?
I have a greater drive from not wanting to fail than the drive of wanting to succeed.
Isn't that like success coaches would tell you that